Probably a handful of people will take me up on that. I've been glad that it's been acceptable on work phone calls to be wearing a hat. Sure. Probably a handful of people will take me up on that.
Got a good crew. Cesaria's frozen on my end.
I know.
Cesaria, try using your phone audio versus your internet.
It's probably smart. I could pull that off.
All right. Hey, if you're one of the people that's on right now joining us, thank you. If you receive a text message that says click here to watch on YouTube, you can continue using the Zoom app, or you can move over to YouTube. It doesn't matter either way. I do know that the YouTube will be a few minutes behind, in case you're super crunched on time this evening.
I'm coming in with the phone. The computer failed me.
So we've already got a great question from Michael Buckus. And did DJ shave for this?
I did. It was a work call, but I'll pretend like it was for POT. It's fresh.
Yeah.
I also thought it was weird. All right, we got a few more people joining. We're going to hang on one more minute. I'm
really bummed because my camera on my Microsoft Surface is like so clear. But now I've just got to do the iPhone camera.
Yeah, it's a big first world problem.
I know.
All right, guys. Hey, just for us to kick it off, we've got a really important question. Let's see here. Can you guys tell us what you think? We've been talking about this a lot recently, and what you think on. Looks like my parents are chatting the panelists right now. All right, here. What do you guys think about this?
100%.
Man, that's unequivocal. Ooh, we got one no. Oh, two of them. They probably haven't watched it. Those are most likely my parents. Oh man, the no is growing. Those have got to be non-watchers. All right. So hey guys, 8:06. We're gonna go ahead and kick it off. Again, some of you people might have heard me a few minutes ago say that you may have received a text message with a link to YouTube, and you can watch it on there. You can watch it on Zoom. It doesn't matter. But we're here. Thanks for joining us. We've got an old friend, a seasoned POT vet. Some of us, the other three guys that are sharing their camera, may refer to him as a godfather of POT. And I'll let Matthew go ahead and introduce him.
Yeah. So we have Brian Dunnigan coming from Dallas, Texas. He used to live in Atlanta. And he actually came and spoke in person at a live Purpose on Tap event, but that was, that was in 2019 when, or maybe even 2018 when we were allowed to be around other humans. But Brian actually had a really huge impact on, as Calder said, myself, Calder, David Johnston, who are on this panel. He helped launch the Bible study that in turn sort of inspired our desire to create community for other men, and provide a platform for other men to get involved in community. So he's also, I'm almost positive, been the officiant at all of our weddings on the panel. And he's just had a huge impact on our marriages, on our growth as men. And we're really excited. I know there's a lot of bad things about COVID, but the fact that Brian's able to join us virtually, and he's lucky with his position as the head pastor at Highland Park to be able to afford Wi-Fi, and an office to himself. I mean, he's struggling over there, so we're glad they paid his cable and Wi-Fi bill this month. So Brian, but in all seriousness, why don't you, I know you've had a lot going on personally, so a good place to start would maybe just kind of fill the people that are tuned in on kind of what you've dealt with the last day or so, and how your day's been leading up to tonight.
Awesome. Well, it's great to see you guys and to be with everybody else who is joining us on YouTube and MySpace or whatever else you got going on here, Calder. It's funny you mentioned Wi-Fi. We live just down the street from SMU, and so we had some family friends from Atlanta, actually, who their daughter is a senior in college, and I guess her parents cut off her bills when school was, I guess, like around graduation. So she didn't have any internet. So she had to use my office today to take all her finals. So, so I actually haven't been in here all day. There's just been a senior from SMU taking her last finals. So anyways, that's neither here nor there, but kind of a crazy day from both just thinking about a college grad who's about to enter into this world in a really unpredictable time. And then I just got off a Zoom call with all of our graduating seniors in high school that attend our church. And it's just, I mean, imagine going through this. And I know I don't think that's a life stage that very many of us are very tuned into, but it's just so different, and it doesn't really seem like a big deal. And you want to put everything in perspective, but it's been hard for them. And, one of these things that you really look forward to, and just this major life transition, and it's just totally been turned upside down for them. And that really sucks. And sometimes we talk about like the hardship Olympics. Everybody's always comparing our hardships, and well, there's always people who have greater hardships. And so it kind of keeps us from actually just being honest about the things that we're dealing with and the struggles that we each have, and owning up to that and asking God to help us through that. Earlier this afternoon, I helped to lead a funeral for somebody in our church, a 21-year-old college student whose battle with emotional health differences ended this past weekend. And so we gathered to celebrate her life and to talk about the things that, at least from my faith tradition, we find sort of unshakable when everything else is stripped away, the things that we find hope in. And so I guess I'm kind of coming in a little bit hot and just very aware of some of the real challenges that people are facing, from, maybe things that seem a little more petty to the most unthinkable, painful loss that any person who's a parent would ever experience. And then a lot of people saying goodbye to a friend that was really struggling. So keenly aware of how much this is affecting people right now. Anyways, so that's kind of my hard day, and happy to sort of process or move on to something else. But I'm learning a ton about just having empathy for what people are going through in the midst of all this.
Brian, yeah, that's obviously long day for you. So want to appreciate you still taking the time to be a part of this conversation with us.
Oh man, I've been looking forward to this all week. This is the highlight. This is the highlight of my week. I'm so excited about this. And it's really hard to not be doing the bedtime routine with our 3 kids, 6 and under right now. I hate missing that. But I'll I'll serve Jesus here for another hour.
Well, yeah. I mean, when else can you be in the pulpit and drink a White Claw?
It's a Truly, okay? It's a black cherry Truly, which is far more genuine than White Claw.
But yeah, one question. So, I mean, this year's been interesting for everybody. And I think, I'd be curious, you mentioned sort of your unshakable kind of perspective around your faith when you're in the midst of a funeral for a 21-year-old who just, took her life. And we have a global pandemic. I mean, it'd be helpful to kind of hear your perspective on what are some of those unshakable values, and whether it's, the biblical perspective that you have, because I know that all of us have had moments of struggle and moments of like, whether we're Christian or not Christian, I've had my moments where I doubt, I have my moments where I question, and it'd be helpful to have your thoughts on kind of those unshakable values.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. And it's hard to, I mean, I think this was the hardest, I hate to kind of keep going back to this, but this was the hardest, in my work. I end up doing a decent number of, I'll do memorial services and looking back on people's lives. This is the hardest one I've ever been involved in. And it, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't walk through this without some serious questions and just realizing that the things that I think I had sort of a litany of really smooth answers for, maybe as a younger pastor or a younger Christian, I just don't know that I can answer those questions as clearly as I used to. And so I have to fall on the things that I do think are unshakable. I believe in a God who is love, and a God who watches over us, and a God who knows what it is to suffer. And so he's with people who suffer, maybe closer than he ever is at any other time. And and likewise, I think that my faith compels me, or compels people who would want to take faith seriously, to move toward those who are suffering the most, and to show up and to be helpful. And it's amazing what happens. I know for like, this has been it's just been like a darker time, and there's been a cloud over a lot of us. And it's amazing, even just showing up to serve somebody else, or finding a creative way to be involved in the lives of people who need help in your community or your city. It can change your outlook and perspective. There's just this hope that comes when I think we get about doing what we're supposed to do, which is putting other people before ourselves and serving. And washing feet is, one of the great, I think, kind of images of Christianity, of following Jesus, who was willing to wash his friends' feet. So yeah, this has been a difficult day. It's been a difficult 50 something days for all of us. Matthew, you were saying it's just like, it's, March 64th is, it's starting to get a little bit old. And I think a lot of us kind of came in, and I was on a call earlier today where we were just joking about how earlier on, I think we were more just ready to embrace the change, and we rallied because we're leaders, and we've got energy and fire, and we want to go after it. And that was awesome for about 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And now it's like we're starting to settle into the fact that this is a longer deal, and it's a bit more almost of a marathon. And I can just see, even in my family life and my marriage, in my personal disciplines, I can see these things are starting to come up where I recognize that I'm not going to be able to get through this if I just kind of rely on my own strength. Again, from my Christian perspective, this is where having those unshakable foundations of God showing up and being strong and being steady in the midst of what we're dealing with is so significant.
Thanks, BD. Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. And as you know, Purpose on Tap is all about community, and we're trying to get guys plugged in to figuring out how to live life with other people, lean on other men, other families, other friends, and we've had 8 weeks of this shutdown, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly important. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on community as it is now, and as we go into the future with all the uncertainty. How do we reconcile that, and what do we practically do as uh, members of whatever community we're in?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really interesting. I just turned off my fan, by the way, because somebody said it was making them trippy. I think that was Todd Sandell. Um, I mean, there's talk about. I mean, right now in my world, I'm in a church and help lead a church, and so right now all the conversations and webinars and Zooms are all about reopening the church and what does life look like on the other side of this, and how long is that going to be, and what's that going to look like, and I think there's a ton of speculation and hope that, and this kind of, we're starting to suspect that there is going to be this craving and hunger for community, for people in ways that maybe we have never known in our lifetime. And it's been encouraging as a church leader leading an organization where the shift to having to move everything virtual and online, we've learned so much. And I think that, at least speaking for my church, and I think for a lot of churches, we're going to be better for this, because we've really had to clarify our values and what matters most. And that's reaching beyond ourselves, and then trying to reach people that maybe haven't known the hope that we think that we found in God. And so things like online viewership and all of that have just been super encouraging and exciting to see the growth. But there, on the other side of this, there's just going to be this real desire for actual community and togetherness, and people being together, and physically being in the same room, and being at this funeral today. It's just crazy to walk alongside people who are going through the most, the saddest moments in their life, and you can't hug them, and you're just trying to figure the awkwardness of social distancing, when we were created to not be socially distant. We were created for intimacy and community and togetherness. And so I'm really interested to see what's going to happen on the other side of this for faith communities, for different kinds of organizations, people who bring groups who bring people together, like Purpose on Tap, and just the hunger for that. But I think that I'm really excited about what life is going to look like. Just don't ask me when the church is opening back up.
Hey, Brian, when is Highland Park Pres going to open back up?
Next question.
Next question.
That ranks up there with the why do you hate cats so much emails, which I've been getting a lot of lately. Apparently, you say one comment about cats not being in heaven, and every septuagenarian female in your congregation.
Well, that's one comment every other sermon for a decade, so they just kind of add up.
Well, I thought they would be anesthetized to it by now, but apparently not. It's just like the heaven thing was just over the line. I'm sorry. I'm learning. I'm teachable.
I love it. All right. So question for you, and just for everyone that's on here, will you please, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat channel. And if you want to chat the panelists specifically, and not everybody, it is anonymous. So question, Brian, you had mentioned cornerstones and foundations, and those seem like a really important thing right now, because we all really need a strong foundation, even just to be able to freaking get up and have breakfast in the morning with how crazy this is.
Yeah.
What wisdom could you provide us that we could use to build on, and either help or build on or create these cornerstones or these foundations for us to just be a little more sane these days?
Okay, that's really funny that you asked that. I just got off this Zoom call with, like, I don't know, 50 graduating high school seniors. And it was so fun. I wrote this down because this one, I was just, how's it going? What are you guys doing? And this one guy's like, he's like, dude, I go to bed at I go to bed at 6 a.m. He's like, I am literally a vampire now. And he goes to bed at 6 a.m. He gets up at 5 a.m. I'm like, when do you eat? Like, when does dinner take place? And so it's just, but I think that all of us have just been sort of like, our lives have turned upside down. I'm normally a pretty disciplined person. I'm very routine, kind of habit oriented, and it has just been harder for me to have some of those cornerstone habits. Or Charles Duhigg wrote a great book called The Power of Habit, I think, and he talks about keystone habits. These are like habits that just have a much stronger pull and force in our lives than actually the effort we have to put into putting these habits into place, like working out every day, or reading daily, or praying daily. These are things that really can change your life. And so I have found for me that some of the practices, and I use the language of like spiritual practices or spiritual disciplines, but these practices, they have become so much more important to me as these sort of keystone foundational parts of my life, just because without them, I'm gonna fall apart. Like, there are mornings I don't want to get up, and I haven't experienced that in a long time, where I literally don't want to get out of bed. I'm less motivated, less driven. And so I have to choose, like, that I'm gonna get up at a certain time, and I'm gonna read scripture at a certain time. I'll be honest, I think my sort of spiritual disciplines of like scripture reading and praying daily, they were struggling a little bit, and it's no longer just optional, as if it ever was. But in this sort of pandemic time, those things have become, I mean, reading the Bible, and I know it's a pastor thing to say, but reading the Bible every day and working through a plan has become so significant to me. And I just find that I have to like make it this same habit every day. The longer passages in like the Old Testament, a lot of times I'll listen to it while I take a walk around the block, and I take the same walk every day. But those practices have become really significant for me. I've started fasting again, just with some leaders in my church, and that's really been kind of a valuable practice of just listening to God and realizing in my hunger that God provides. And then I realized there are a lot of hungry people in our city, and in the world, and food insecurity is a big deal, and all kinds of things that I've been seeing that I didn't realize. Sabbath, I think, is one of those cornerstones, is a key practice. And it's one of those undervalued spiritual practices in the Bible. That's all over the Bible, but we don't really honor it. And so spending a day where we just try to get free from screens, and where I can spend time. I've got 3 kids, 6 and under, and just to be with them and be present with them, and not be dialed into new Slack messages in my inbox, and just the 13th question of the day: when are we reopening the church? Not that that's a bad question, because people really care about the church. Those are some of the things that have become like cornerstones for me.
Sweet. Well, Brian, one question someone asked was for us to maybe point out an impact that you had on kind of the folks on the panel. And so one thing I want to kind of bring up and recognize is I met you when I was in high school, I think even maybe in middle school, but I remember watching you in your pursuit of your now wife, Allie. And that's something that I've always held on to. I even talked about it at your wedding, of watching you sort of wait and pursue and always kind of continue the chase of her. And so that's something I've admired and tried to emulate in trying to continually pursue my spouse. So that's kind of one thing I learned from you, but kind of also want to steer that into a question in how, in this time when you've got 3 kids, and this is, for those of us who are married or married with kids, how are you still pursuing your wife? Someone even asked a question about, what are you doing to still kind of create that holy date night experience, especially during quarantine? But what are you doing, or what would you recommend to still make your wife feel special, feel like she's being pursued, and not just sort of an item on the checklist during quarantine as a parent, a father, and a professional?
Man, that's a that's a great question. That and you know, I'm trying to think how open and honest I can be about that one. It's interesting. One of the things that at least kind of in my, I don't know, my network or some of the reading that I've been doing is just the uptick in the midst, and this is gonna be like a lagging indicator, but with the pandemic, I think a lot of families and marriages are just I mean, there's a lot more there are more incidents of domestic violence and abuse or emotional abuse. There's also just the reliance on things like alcohol and pornography and just images that kind of help us, I don't know, escape or numb the things that we're dealing with. And I think just kind of a general like aloofness, emotional aloofness would be the thing that I feel like I have been the most susceptible to with Allie, with my wife. We've been married for 12 years. We celebrated our anniversary in quarantine. And you know, it's hard because it's like, okay, we're going to put the kids to bed again, and we're going to cook this, like, again, the same thing. Do you want salmon or salmon on the, I'll do it on the egg, you know, on both sides with the skin cooked this time, and it'll be super romantic. But, you know, I think for us, we've had to just sort of talk through that and recognize, I've had to share with her just the reality that you know, I can see some of the edges and irritability in my personality coming out more because I'm tired, because I'm anxious, because I've never worked harder for some reason in the midst of this pandemic. And just to try to, for me to actually like not need to turn on The Last Dance as soon as the kids are down, or to watch, I mean, I don't even like to fish, and I find myself watching, you know, whatever the crabbing show is on Discovery, and just because it's like mindless, and so to actually spend that time and to create conversation, and you know, we have these things called conversation cards, and they just like, we literally can pull out this deck of cards, and they just have pre-written questions that it's amazing just asking Allie, like if I just show interest and ask Allie a couple questions that are more than surface level, like how many times did our 2-year-old daughter, you know, pee herself today because she's potty training, but a little bit more sort of relationship questions, or what's the next vacation that you would love to take that we could do together, maybe on the other side of this, and just to connect in that way. That's been huge for us. And it's amazing how responsive she is just to me wanting to get into her world. Because I don't know about you guys, and every, you know, relationship or dating scenario or marriage or family is different, but my life has not changed as much as, I don't think I've had to sort of change and pivot quite as much as my wife has. She's homeschooling and disciplining and cooking and cleaning, and I still go to work every day at the same time, and pretty much for the most part come home at the same time. So having that empathy for her and meeting her in that has been a real challenge.
All right, BD. So first I want to touch on just our experience with you as our leader when you were in Atlanta. I think your ability to balance being empathetic and fun, and also have a really strong faith as your backbone, has been incredible to me, and it's been a really cool thing to watch. You can relate to all people, yet you're a pastor and have this congregation you take care of. It's been really cool. And I want to talk about leadership, because you're a leader for a really historical and influential church in Dallas. And how do we, whether you're single at home alone right now, or you have kids, or you're married, how do we step up as leaders at home at work in our communities during this time and going forward?
Man, thank you for asking that question. And DJ, you're an amazing leader, and I've learned a ton from watching you. I feel like this last 60 days or however long it's been, feels longer than that. I feel like it's been it's just the most unique, but maybe the greatest leadership challenge that I've faced in my time of being a leader. And it has led to more self-doubt. It has exposed more of my weakness as a leader. I've probably had more conversations over the last week with people that I have some role of leadership in their life or their world, that has kind of challenged just deficiencies in my, like, on the heart level, soul level, character level, things that I don't really want to hear that are true about me, that they have shared with me, that have stung and have been painful. And yet for some reason, it just feels like this is one of those stretches where there is such a tremendous opportunity for leaders, and all of us are leaders, to look inward and to invite God to do the kind of below the waterline work that sometimes when we're just going full speed, and when there's more of the scaffolding of life, we're not aware of these places of brokenness and these weaknesses and these edges in our life. I mean, this morning, I had kind of the breakfast routine. My wife that's like her time that she gets by herself, is in the morning. And so I do breakfast and the wake up time. And again, we have twin 6-year-olds, and we have a 2-year-old daughter. Call her Jane. And so the thing with CJ is she gets her milk in the morning, and we call it her big fatty. That's just what we call her when she wants a really big sippy cup of milk, her big fatty leche. But she doesn't get her big fatty until she brushes her teeth, because she's learning how to brush her teeth. I mean, that's something that you have to do at some point in life. So I'm like totally irritable this morning, and I can tell I'm on edge, and she is fighting me, and I will not budge. And I'm like, you will not get your big fatty until you brush your teeth. So she is running around the house screaming at the top of her lungs, I want my big fatty. And I had it, man. And I was just mad at the other kids, and I was short with them, and, clean the dishes and stop making so much noise. And I just is so aware of all the ways that God is working on my leadership in my family, with my kids, with my wife, and how far I have to go. Crises like this create, obviously, the, simple reality is it creates unexpected problems we never thought we had. Whether we have a lot of people in the oil and gas industry here in Dallas, or in the hospitality, whether your hospitality industry job, there is an existential crisis that a lot of us are dealing with on the work front, and at home. We are facing new problems. But the other side of it is that these crises create unprecedented opportunities. The chance to accelerate and grow as leaders has never been higher. And really, crises like this, they give us intense clarity to see ourselves as we really are, to see our organizations in new ways, to see the opportunities we have to grow and to grow the people around us. And I feel like that's been true in my family life. I can't hide as much as I used to. I can't run to different kinds of things that distract me or, give me momentary happiness. It's just like, it's family of 5, Dunnigan party of 5. And we have to deal with all of our messiness, and my kids have to see daddy as he really is. But it's an incredible opportunity for growth. If we're willing to do some of that hard work, to look around the corner. The currency of leadership has never been higher than in these days of a pandemic like this.
Hey, Brian, that's actually what you just said. Your ending there was a great transition. It was a question from another former POT speaker. I think he was 2 months before you, a good friend of ours, Kyle Pease. in your opinion, and this is more objective than all the other questions that we've asked, in your opinion, what do you think Jesus would say about social distancing?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
download on
really-
that one and just give us a quick answer.
That's an epic question.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could run so many directions on this. Do you want like the Fox News side? Do you want the CNN version? Washington Post?
All great news outlets. How about the Brian Dunnigan version?
I want to be kind of catty with this, but I guess I feel like, and I know that this is becoming sort of an increasingly polarizing issue. And when we started on this, and I feel this as like a church leader or a community leader, when we were all facing this pandemic coming together, there was just this rally cry that we're gonna be united, and we're gonna work together and partner together, and we're gonna beat this. We will get through this together. And it was so encouraging and so galvanizing and unifying. And I think now we're starting to sense just the polarizing nature of just being human and the politicizing of these different things. And I feel that in my own community and my own church, and those family text chains that are hilarious. I think that there's a level of just loving our neighbor in the midst of this. Even there's sort of this unthinkable dilemma, like at this funeral, I want to just go hug these people, and yet I'm not sure that that's the way that I'm supposed to love that person in the midst of it. And so the balance or the tension of that, I'd like to think that if Jesus were in our shoes, I don't think he would be anxious. I don't think he would be particularly alarmist. But I do think that he seemed to try to distill most challenges that he faced to sort of this fundamental question of what does it look like to love God, and what does it look like to love your neighbor? So if we keep that front and center, if my church keeps that question front and center, I think that we're going to be able to navigate this with clarity and come out come out of this with wisdom and discernment. I'm curious how the question asker would answer that, because that was really good.
Ooh, that was a Kyle Pease question. How many Ironmans have you done, Brian? Because I bet he's done more than you.
That's awesome. Humble bragging, Matthew. How many have you done?
Not as many as Kyle.
Nice.
Kyle. So,
I'm just looking at the chat now. Do I want to look at this?
Yeah, I guess you could just, we could just stop asking you the questions and you could just read the chat.
The
Why
big
don't
fatty.
we,
The big fatty got some.
Another previous speaker has a good question. What's been, I guess, as a father of young kids, what's been something you've loved about this kind of quarantine time period? And has there been like an activity, that you might recommend, or an event where you've sort of kind of broken the rules or bent the rules because of the special circumstances from a father of young kids standpoint?
Yeah. Oh man, it's been amazing. There's so many things that have happened that I just never thought were gonna happen. We're all, I know, like a lot, like life is on Zoom now. All I want to do is a Zoom, and there's sort of been this like slow adoption to Zoom environments. One of our first weeks, one of our campuses, our church campuses, was actually having worship services on Zoom. And I was preaching that morning, and I think I was up here in my this little kind of study area, and my 2-year-old daughter came in. I had my headphones, my Q-tips, AirPods in, and I didn't hear her, and she came up butt naked, and she's like dancing in the background, and just comes up like, you've heard about Zoom bombing before. Well, I got Zoom bombed by my naked daughter in the midst of this this Zoom call that there are like 300 people from the church on. And so those are just some of the new realities. I'm just really grateful for these, for the time, forget quality time, just having time with my kids, and more of it has been a total gift. And yes, it's been hard, it's taxing, it's exhausting. And my wife and I are, we're just beat by the end of the day, but it's been so much fun. And we bought a trampoline and a bounce house and multiple Enos and a slack line. Those have all been really helpful, and a lot of lacrosse balls, very helpful.
Is that trampoline, is that all stuff you just stole from the Highland Park gym, or did you actually buy it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're definitely
Sponsored by Highland Park.
we are definitely victims of toddler toy production price gouging on Amazon. And it's just, we were stuck. Like, we don't have a pool. Okay, we don't have a pool. We're gonna get a trampoline. And it's been incredible.
Hey,
So,
Brian, how many lacrosse balls have y'all gone through, and how many broken windows have you encountered?
no broken windows yet. 24 so far, 24 this quarantine. We get those like really soft ones. They have a lot more give, so they don't break windows as much. Those have been really good. And the trampoline has been great. I haven't listened to House of Pain this much in years, decades, at least since, I don't know, freshman year or whatever, college or high school, but it's been great. My kids love House of Pain now, especially my 6-year-old son, Wheeler.
All right. Hey, Dunnigan, is there any question out of I think you can see the Q&A that we have. Some great shout outs from Buckus there on Laxing Bro. Is there any question out of there that you would like to select as the last one? And if not, is there anything that you would like to close with, or some final thoughts for us?
Let's see, real quick. Some books that have influenced in my daily daily practice, daily habits. I mentioned The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. That's a great book. It's The Power of Habit. It's not necessarily a book, but I've been doing this Bible in 1 year reading plan that Alpha has put out, and it's been awesome. It's been great for me to walk through Scripture, and it takes you through the Bible in a year. And for me, that's been super helpful. I made it through Leviticus, which is not that easy. And let's see, there's an amazing question about a biblical hermeneutic of balancing the opening of society versus saving the economy and mitigating health risks. And the June speaker apparently is really, really learned on these, Brendan, on that question. So I'm excited for him to be able to answer that question. But it has been, you said, with conversations with family members and coworkers, and it's amazing. Just like I have a board. There's a board that I report to that are ultimately kind of the responsible leaders of the church that I serve, and so they're asking all these kind of questions, like, man, how do we lead out, and how do we listen to both kind of medical experts, but then at the same time, try to do the best sort of for the common good of our city. And that is a super loaded question. I know we could get into that a ton. One of the challenges that I'm seeing, so I will answer this a little bit. It's interesting how the pandemic in Dallas, or COVID-19 in Dallas, like, it first spread a lot more quickly. There was more community spread in predominantly wealthier parts of the city of Dallas, and more predominantly in parts of the city that where more white people lived. And now there is more concern for super spread and community spread and hot spots in communities of color. And so I've been on a ton of calls just with different church leaders and pastors around Dallas. And I think we're just beginning to be concerned, like, how do we walk together through this across racial lines and different parts of society and different, the wealth disparity in a city like Dallas is just staggering. And so how do we tackle this together? And how do we try to stay united as Christians in our response to this? I just don't have the answer to that. And I have a ton of learning to do. And I would like to do what I can to see this as an opportunity for the church to be united and to draw together. And I think that might be a real chance to make an impact in a city like Dallas or a city like Atlanta in these days. So I think I just raised more questions than I did answers.
No, thanks, Brian. That was great. So I just got a text message for all those people that can see. Hold on here. I got a picture from a friend of mine, and he said he wasn't sure if he knew about the COVID-19, what could cure him from it. I don't know if you can see that, but this was our 2018 pint glass and a classic West Coast IPA that's very hard to find. I believe Brian is familiar with it, along with a few other people on here, Pliny the Elder. So I just let him know that his picture that he sent me, I was going to show it on here and let him know that it was approved as an antidote for the coronavirus.
That's just amazing. Thank you, Calder, for that infinite wisdom. That's awesome.
It's really hard to do things like this that are just so wise. I hear you and agree.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I'm just gonna go ahead and point out that that one of the questions was alcohol sales have tripled during quarantine. Any advice for keeping our minds in the right place? And I'll just kind of leave it.
Please.
But
no, please go ahead.
Oh man, no, I'm certainly aware of the ways that so many of our, like, the places we run to for comfort have been stripped away. And it's just amazing how we've gone looking for other things. And I say that as somebody who will enjoy a beer or a glass of wine, but I do think it's good just to kind of pay attention to those things in our lives and on our dashboard as we look at what the ways that we can grow and grow as leaders and as just friends and fathers and husbands, just that we're paying attention to the places that we run to for comfort. And I've certainly had to do that. My wife and I have had some good conversations about that. And I hope that a place like Purpose on Tap, or the communities that mean a lot, the communities that are influencing you can be places where we can speak openly and just honestly, and that we can have friends that can ask us about stuff like that. So I'm grateful for the honesty.
So Brian, you mentioned beer and wine, but you didn't mention Truly.
Yeah. I had my first Truly experience. Yeah, somebody invited me to a University of Texas football game, and they gave me a Truly, which just felt so violating, and just wrong. It really needed to be something else at your first Longhorns football game. So I'd prefer for that not to be. Is this going to be like a password protected YouTube video?
And was that when you were 16 or 18?
This is when I was like 38, man. Awesome.
Right. Brian, hey, thanks so much for joining us and hosting us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. For those of you that weren't here at the beginning, it was either David or Matthew had mentioned that Brian had married all three of us over a 5-year span, 6 years.
Yeah, I had officiated at your weddings. Yeah.
Yeah. I think only one or two plane flights. Anyway, we're just so grateful that you came here and joined us this evening. This was a lot of fun. We know this is very different for everyone. We're not at Monday Night Brewery. We're not able to shake hands and hug friends and all that type of stuff. And that's weird. And that's, a lot of the stuff that Brian talked about that he's facing at his church right now on just issues that they're going through on trying to continue to create community, even though we're not allowed to be together, so to speak. So closing remarks, I'd love to remind all you guys, June 3rd is our next Purpose on Tap. We're really excited. Please let us know if the way that you received the email was convenient for you, the way that it was easy to accept the invite or add it to your calendar. We really want to make things easier for everyone. We tried something. I'm getting a lot of text messages now. We tried something tonight where I think I saw up to a few dozen people on YouTube through integration between the Zoom and YouTube Live. We actually have 644 YouTube subscribers, which we're 99% sure are 100% related to Jeff Foxworthy speaking, because his videos got like 200,000 views right now. Anyway, June 3rd, please let us know how this worked. If it was easy, if it was hard, what was easy. We'd love to hear your feedback because we want to make this as easy for everyone as possible. We will be meeting virtually again in June, again on June 3rd. We never meet in July, so we don't have to worry about July. We were planning on hosting, if you guys remember from March, we were going to rent out the Delta Sky Club at SunTrust Park for a baseball game, which we're no longer going to be able to do. So we won't meet.
We can promise a lot now that we can't do it.
Yeah,
we're also going to get everyone field passes, but we just can't do it anymore. Sorry.
All day.
All right, guys. Everyone, thank you so much for joining, whether you're on the Zoom, whether you're on the YouTube Live. Thanks, Brian. Thanks again for joining us.
Hey, this is awesome, and I'm really thankful to be a part of it. And can I call in in June? Can I invite some friends from Dallas?
Please
do.
Is that okay? I mean, I know that we probably use more hair product and stuff like that, but
you're technically not the South, but we'll be okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll talk about that another time. But
all right, everyone. Thanks for joining, Brian. Thanks again.
Thanks, BD.
Everyone, give us feedback, and we'll see everyone on June 3rd. Thanks, guys. See ya.